I'd like to call to order this November 5th, 2020 regular Board of Education meeting. Mr. Kiffer, would you please take the roll?
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Buckner-Sully?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here?
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
All are present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is appointment of Treasurer Pro Tempore for the November 5th Board of Education meeting. I nominate Mr. Kyle Kiffer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Kiffer, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckner-Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes. And the motion carries, and Mr. Anagnostou has a other engagement, and so our Assistant Treasurer, Mr. Kiffer, is taking his place, so we welcome him and look forward to having a good job as President or Treasurer Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain student achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And it goes without saying that all three of these goals are currently challenged. Next is public comment. We do have quite a bit of public comment today, so in no particular order. And I apologize if I mispronounce any of the names. Hina Shaw. Did I say that even close?
That was perfect.
Excellent. So as you approach the lectern, please say your name and your address. You have approximately 3 minutes. We're normally very generous, but we do have quite a few public comments today, so I'll just give you a high sign at 3 minutes.
I'm
Thank you.
Hina Shah, and my address is 22419 Northwood Trail, Strongsville, Ohio 44149. Good evening, everybody. The reason I'm here today is to support the fact that we are in a difficult situation right now. I wanted to support hybrid school system especially for high school and middle school. I totally understand and I totally agree that the students need to get into the school for education. It is completely valid. But given this current situation today, there are too many kids in high school that are coming in and out at a given point of time. We feel that there is less social distancing not as much as needed. What hybrid would do is actually resolve the situation, resolve the conditions. There would be more social distancing, and at the same time, it will achieve the goal of having the kids in school. Totally agree that younger kids, the elementary school kids, they need to be in school. It is very difficult for parents to give them education as well as the teachers can impart to them. However, what we are saying is the middle school and the high school kids can do it themselves also, but there is, with a hybrid situation, they can get the help of the teachers as well. If there is a proposal for everyday school for high school and middle school kids, where the number of students that are in the building at the same time can be reduced, I am all for it too. However, I don't think with all the restraints that we have, financial restraints and all the other restraints, that is possible. So the best situation right now, the best solution right now would be the hybrid school system right now. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, and again, I apologize if I don't pronounce it correctly, Shafali Parikh. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The reason I'm here today, of course, is we all are aware of this COVID pandemic situation. I don't know why, but I do feel very nervous. As my son came today after high school home, he did say that somebody in his class was quarantined for 14 days. Again, we don't know if he tested out positive or somebody in his family or her family tested out positive. Cases are definitely spiking up. So we as parents still don't understand how come the schools are open every day in person, 5 days, for high schoolers and middle schoolers. To my understanding and knowledge, I don't think there is enough social distancing during lunchtime and even during the hallways when kids are switching classes. Not only that, even our neighboring cities, like for example, North Royalton or Parma School District, they all have gone to remote, completely remote from hybrid. I do work for Cuyahoga County, and I get a report from Board of Health, and yes, they always keep me up to date and posted that cases are spiking up, so hopefully things will change for your school system. Another reason I'm a little nervous since I'm a caregiver for my parents, and they are about 65. And unfortunately, I cannot take care of them since our son does go to school every day in person, and I don't feel safe for them since he's exposed to all these kids. I wish we have an option for high schoolers and middle schoolers, like Hina said, go remote or hybrid. That would be a wonderful thing for most of us. At least we won't be panicking, especially when we are juggling right now with our work too. And that's it. And sorry, but our home address is 17290 Greenwood Drive, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. And again, my name is Shafali Parikh. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next is Wissam Yamor. Even close? Tell me how to pronounce it correctly and let us know your address.
My name is Wissam Yagmore.
It's very nice to meet you, Wissam. You
Nice to
have
meet you as
approximately
well.
3 minutes.
I have come to express my concerns about the school systems as well. As a high school student, I know that some limitations for things such as hybrid or remote are mental health, just things such as lack of motivation and just missing that social aspect. But at the same time, in the high school, me and many of my peers feel increased levels of stress and anxiety, especially since we had that recent scare with hitting almost purple. And I've just noticed a lot of things not quite right in our schools, such as lack of mask enforcement in students and teachers, lack of social distancing in hallways, and lack of social distancing in the lunchrooms. And because of that, I suggest that we would move to a hybrid system. I just believe that it allows for the best of both worlds. And at the same time, like we still get the social aspect of that and we get to experience the in-school. And at the same time, there is also an increased safety just due to us staying home. If we were to continue with 5 days a week, I believe that the rules should be enforced much better. For instance, there would be penalties for not following mask standards, such as like a check system. You get like maybe possibly 3 warnings, and if you hit 3 warnings, you will be reprimanded. Additionally, concerning the teachers, I and many of my peers have noticed teachers either pulling down their masks or just taking them off completely during lessons. And it is a very big concern for all of us because it decreases our safety. And I do not know how we would go about this, but I do believe that they should be reprimanded as well. And that is all I have to say. And again, my name is Wissam Yagmore. Address is 14798 Stone Creek Oval, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. Thank you.
Thank you, Wissam. I appreciate it. You speak very well. Next is Vardan Shaw.
Hi, I'm Vardan Shah. My address is 22419 Northwood Trail, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. I wanted to bring a student perspective to this whole discussion. I'm a student at Strongsville High School, as are many of my peers attending here today as well. To be honest, the main problem with having us in school 5 days a week is there's too many people and not enough room. Simple as that. Social distancing is hardly enforced in classrooms. There is a maximum of 6 feet of distance between each student in many of the classrooms that I'm in, and I'm in several AP and honors classes, which tends to be smaller than the regular classes of similar subjects. So in those classes, the social distancing aspect is extremely difficult to enforce through no fault of anyone's, but simply because of the fact that there's not enough room. In addition, in the hallways, there is absolutely no social distancing whatsoever. I moved from my third period economics class to my 4th period physics class. There is a stairwell where I am packed like sardines, next to people and in front of people, behind people. Although I am not there for an extended period of time, it is still 2 to 3 minutes, and the risk of contracting coronavirus increases the closer you are and the more time that you spend. So that, I feel, is definitely a risk. Related to masks, many students and staff commendably wear their masks properly and with their due diligence. However, there is a significant subset of students who will either in class or in the hallways when it's difficult to enforce, they will take their mask off, and because there's so many people, they are packed really close to each other. In addition, I think one of the most major concerns that I have is about, as Wissam pointed out earlier, teachers. There are many teachers at the school who are being extremely lax about not only their own mask wearing, but the mask wearing of their students. The whole issue with that is that there's a power dynamic at play. I can't, as a student, tell my teacher to wear their mask because I'm the student. I can't interrupt the class. There's no system for me to express my concerns in that sense. Regarding our neighbors, as Mrs. Parikh pointed out, North Royalton is fully on remote. Berea is on a hybrid schedule, and Brunswick is also on a hybrid schedule. All our neighbors who are in a similar area as us are doing things other than sending their students to school 5 days a week. I believe that that is also the best option. Anything that other than 5 days a week, anything that reduces the number of students in the building at any one given point in time. Cases are going up. People may not report the cases that they are actually, the test results that they're actually receiving, and we don't know 100% the role of schools and other youth engagements in the role of spreading coronavirus, and that is the biggest problem. We simply do not know. In my opinion, as a city, we shouldn't be taking these risks with a virus that we don't completely know and completely understand. To conclude, and I think to reiterate, whether we are in person 5 days a week or whether we are hybrid or whether we go remote, I think something that is essential that needs to be discussed is what to do about teachers who do not follow mask policies, because the students are not the ones who can be held responsible for keeping the teachers accountable because of the power dynamic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vardon, and again, you speak very well. Ariane Parikh?
Good evening. My name is Aryan Parikh, and my home address is 17290 Greenwood Drive, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. And two of the main points I wanted to make tonight were about the social distancing in the hallways and the classroom. Now, in the hallways, sometimes there are staff members that enforce the rules and make people go in different directions to get to different classrooms. However, in my personal case, I take 2 math classes this year. So, and both times I come from upstairs to downstairs to go to math, and I take the same route. Now, when I go from 3rd period to 4th period to math, there is usually a staff member pointing in each direction and telling us which way to go for separate classes. However, when I come down from 7th period to 8th period, I don't see any staff members, and there are just students all over the place. And when I'm heading to lunch, I always see a lot of students, and it feels like everyone's just on top of each other with no regard for social distancing. And the new bell schedules that were supposed to happen, they are rarely being enforced by teachers. And today I saw a student pull down their mask to talk to someone in the hallway. Now, there are so many people in the hallways that anybody could get the coronavirus from the 2 or 3 minutes, like Vardon said, spent in the hallways. And also in the lunchrooms, while everyone's eating, there are 3 people per table, but all their masks are off, and there are tables surrounding them in each direction. So it's very hard to keep social distancing. And one other thing I wanted to bring up is one of my teachers today, he asked where one of our students was because they were absent. And the students told him that he was quarantining for 14 days. And the teacher was like, oh, this is really irritating because I find out these things more from what the students are telling me than from what I actually get reported from the administration. So clearly, there's a lack of communications between the teachers and the administration, allowing everyone to know where the cases are and who is actually reporting cases. Thank you.
Ariane, did I say it right? Ariane.
Yeah.
You speak very well, and I'm pretty sure your mom's fairly proud of you. Next is Autumn Offenberger? Offenberger.
Hi there, my name is Autumn Offenberger. My address is 10800 Creek Moss Lane, Strongsville, Ohio, 44149. And just like the rest of my peers, I am a Strongsville High School student. However, I believe I can offer a different perspective. I chose to enroll in the solo program. My mom is immune compromised. There were a lot of health risks that came with that, and so I believe that the solo route was best for me. However, I do come in for 1 period a day, which is music, which I also greatly appreciate you guys offering. That was very beneficial to me. However, I do have some concerns. Even though I only come in for 1 period a day, I've seen at least 4 teachers not wearing masks. I brought it up to fellow teachers. I even brought it up to the principal. And I heard that he had sent out emails, which I'm greatly appreciative of. However, in the 2 weeks that it's been since I told him, I haven't seen much change. I'm very concerned. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because I do have an immune-compromised mother. But I do believe there needs to be change. And I can't speak for the normal high school experience right now. But as you've heard, I think everyone has thought the same. So personally, just as Sam said, I believe that there should be reprimands for both teachers and students. Because at the end of the day, it's not about anything else other than people's health. And that should be most important. And that is what I had to say. So thank you.
Autumn, thank you very much, and you also speak very well. Next is Param Oswal.
Hello, my name is Parham. My address is 1503 Scarlet Oak Trail, 44149, Strongsville, Ohio. Just like my peers here today, I'm also a student at Strongsville High School. And one main point that I wanted to address today is, although we don't know how many cases that are actually reported, in the past 48 hours, we have found out about 1 staff member and 1 student. Now, although you are able to trace who they come in contact with in their classrooms, you don't know about the lunchroom. There are no seating charts, masks are off, and you're less than 6 feet apart from not only the people you're sitting at the table with, but from the surrounding tables. And also there are many students who walk around the lunchroom with their masks off and go and socialize with other people. And none of the lunch monitors, and I mean none, will give any consequences for that. There's no one making sure that that doesn't happen. I mean, if you go up to throw food in a trash can, or your plate in whatever in the trash can, and your mask is off, they'll come tell you. But if you go with your mask off to someone else to try to talk to them, they won't say anything. And I also believe most tables are wiped, but there are people that wipe them. A lot of times they're very lazy. I see them go one swipe and they're done. They don't clean it properly, and people are eating there with their masks off. And when your mask is off, the virus will stay in the air. It won't just go. And there's no way we are sanitizing the air there. And people come and sit in that exact spot with their masks off again for a lot more than 15 minutes. So that is more than enough time for them to contract the virus. That is all I have to say. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my concern.
Parham, thank you very much. It would be remiss if I didn't say you speak very well. And that doesn't mean the adults don't speak very well, but I'm always impressed when the students speak very well. And last is Scott Storm, and I'm sure you will speak very well.
It is a challenge to speak with the mask on, that is for sure. Scott Storm, 14111 Wilma Drive, Strongsville, Ohio, 44136. Mr. President, I just have my paper. Good evening. We have come a very long way in a very short period of time. Just over 2 months. We have helped our remote students avoid in K through 5 what would have been the solo program, and are now hopeful that this solid response and ideas within the new SCS Connects platform will be successful in providing them with a premier educational experience. I have a couple of thank yous I'd like to say here. Thank you to the Board of Education for listening, responding, engaging, tiresome, countless hours, dealing with angry people, taking responsibility, and being accountable to the experience you want to provide all students. Thank you for advocating for them, the remote students in our district, to have a dedicated Strongsville teacher, and providing them with the educational tools that they need to help them achieve educational excellence across the curriculum. We look forward to engaging and continuing to work with you as we go forward. We know you will continue to listen and do whatever it takes to keep our schools and our community excellent in every way, shape, and form. Thank you to the administration, to Dr. Ryba, Ms. Pelko, Ms. Erin Green, Ms. Katie Hawk, Mr. Faust, and anyone else who has been helping these administrators behind the scenes for your responsiveness to the Board of Education in finding a way to execute what the Board of Education has asked of you in order to best serve our students and achieve our goals as a district. Dr. Ryba, you may have something, if it executes as hoped, that can not only meet the needs of our students in our district, but also serve as a model for other districts. We sincerely hope this goes the best that it possibly can for our students. Thank you. A huge thank you to our superstar Strongsville teachers. You have been responsive and agile on the front lines while educating and inspiring the learning minds of our students. Thank you for caring about and teaching our students as you provide a premier educational experience in a way you never thought was possible. We look forward to working with you. May God bless and magnify you teachers. Thank you to the community, members, and parents who have clearly and persistently voiced the needs of the students to help drive the changes that they and our community need. We look forward to working together with the Board of Education, the administration, and our top-notch teachers as we grow and develop the SCS Connects program. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Scott. I want to make sure that everyone, the students, we heard you. I'm sure that Dr. Ryba will make sure the messages are passed on to Mr. Wingler, and we'll work from there.
If I could, Mr. Micko, the message have already been passed on. A couple of these students here are students in my superintendent's advisory group. So we've had this conversation. Mr. Wingler and I have talked about their feedback earlier this week. And so a couple comments that I'd like to make just in response. And first of all, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your experience. You know, obviously, as some of you know me a little bit better than others, we talk about procedures, we talk about protocols we put in place to keep all of our staff and students safe and healthy, but everybody needs to do their part, and that's the challenge when you have almost 2,000 kids and you know, lots of staff. We all need to come together and do our part for the benefit of the greater good. So altogether, and Vardon shared this, you know, altogether, students and staff are doing a good job with their masks, but we have areas that we need to improve upon. We've had the conversation, and I'm not just going to say teachers, but we've had that conversation about staff and proper mask wearing and utilizing that. And although we don't want to create a system where you feel the need to constantly find a principal to share. But yes, we've done public service announcements, we've done staff meeting talks, we've done email communications. But what is helpful is if you see as students consistent folks adults that are not following the rules, as you did, you need to reach out to an administrator, one of the administrators, and let him or her know, because that's how we really solve pervasive problems, is we have those individual conversations or corrective actions, whatever they need to be, because it's the benefit of the health and safety of everybody to do that. You know, in the hallways, you're right. It's going to be close. And yes, it's not going to add up to the 15 minutes at one time or probably over 24 hours as the CDC rules are there. But as much as we do one-way stairs, administrators, and I think we all understand that there's only so many adults to go around. They can't be in every corner. Whoever had the comment about the math hallway, right, that's the narrowest hallway in the building, and it becomes difficult to socially distance. But we'll continue to work on that, and we continue to need feedback from our students to our administrative team to help support that. In terms of just one thing I want to clarify, that the concern or fear that students will test positive for COVID, but we won't know about it. The Board of Health is automatically contacted when somebody tests positive. The Board of Health contacts us for students. For staff, sometimes they self-report. We require them to provide documentation because staff live in every city, right? They may not live in Cuyahoga County, so they may not know to report to us. But students that test positive, the county will contact us and let us know. So the idea that somebody's going to be positive and come to school, it's you know, could it happen in the delay in the phone call? Yes, but we would know where that is. So I wanted to clarify that. And the other thing that I wanted to clarify is the communication protocols for students that are isolated or staff that are isolated or students or staff that are quarantined. Because when we start talking about is there a communication breakdown, that brings a lot of concern. And I want to share with you that there is not a communication breakdown in terms of cases that we know about. However, as we're going through this spike, what is happening is that students are self-quarantining, not based on something that happened on school, but we're seeing a lot of parents, a lot of siblings that are testing positive and they're self-quarantining. So there are some times where a teacher would say, I don't know this kid's quarantining because we don't know. And so that's the challenge we have to all of our families. And I said it in my last email update, I think, this past Monday, of please let us know. There's an online anonymous reporting system. If you want to share somebody that you think is COVID positive, we'll investigate. But as we see, and as I've shared in email communications, we have not seen any positive COVID case originate in our school district. And up to the point in the data we have as of tonight, we have not seen any spread of COVID cases in our district. But we are seeing a significant increase in students and staff that are testing positive because of outside activities. And it's important that they share that with us, so at their home, call the attendance line. That's what we say, call the attendance line. I'm staying home because I have COVID-related symptoms, or I'm quarantined because my brother, my mother, somebody I spent contact with is positive, and now I'm a direct contact, so I need to be quarantined for the next 14 days. So that's where there may be some communication lapses, but it's not for ones that we're directly dealing with or knowing about. But again, thank you. I will follow up with Ms. Boydum and Mr. Wingler to let them know of your comments, and let's continue to work together to help ensure that there's a safe and healthy environment for all of our students.
And I just, while you replying to or responding to some of your comments, I just wanted to share, I appreciate all the students, I'm going to say, stepping up and making sure your voices are heard. And I would think that we need that message to go to everybody. Fellow students, fellow classmates, the adults in the room, the teachers and the staff, we all need to step up. Whether we agree or disagree with the mask wearing, with the physical distancing or whatever, we don't have the option to say, I'm not going to follow the rules. We all need to step up. We all need to work together. And then when we do have the cases of infection, because we will have them, it's important for me that everyone understands our commitment is that we will be rigorous in our contact tracing, and we will do the quarantining, the isolation, because that protects not just those students, but it protects the entire community at large. Any other comments? Next is superintendent's report. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. One item for me is that I wanted to give an update, as Mr. Storm shared, about our SES Connects program. We started communicating. We've been working on this for a long time, but we communicated with our families yesterday morning via email, just held a community conversation a couple hours ago. But I wanted to update the board officially. So I'm going to give an abridged version of the community conversation, just so there can be dialogue, feedback, questions. And then once I'm done with that, Mr. Micko, I'll turn it over to you, since we're in red this week, to the board for further discussion as to the learning framework we'll be in for the week of November 9th. So, as I shared, and the community conversation, it's on our SES TV website. You can see the live stream there. It's recorded. But what we heard loud and clear from our families, we have our K-5 families. We've been working on how can we meet the needs of our students and their learning no matter where they're at. So we have families that from the beginning of the year, they enrolled in Lincoln Learning. That's our asynchronous platform because they did not want to, they wanted the flexibility, they wanted the adaptability of the program, and they didn't want to go through what we're going through right now of changes in colors and changes in learning frameworks. And so we've got some enhancements for that program. We talked about last board meeting, and those will go into place the second semester. But we had a significant number, about 230-ish families that started with the school district in Remote Learning 2.0. And then when we came back midway through the first quarter, they wanted an option, and that asynchronous Lincoln Learning was not an option for them. It was actually not an option for us because they stopped allowing for new students to come in. And so we provided a new platform of Solo 2.0. So I met with the Solo 2.0 teachers yesterday, and just as I commended a couple hours ago our SES Connects teachers for stepping up and working for the betterment of our students, I want to share that with our Solo 2.0 teachers as well. Any new program, there's some bumps in the road, there's a learning curve. But the program that we developed and the program that we said we would implement is the program we are implementing to a high degree of success with our students. And I think even though we only have about 140 families that responded to the survey, and you break that down by Solo 2.0, right now we're averaging about 40% of our families that want to stay in Solo 2.0. So I think that shares the value of that program, and for those families that want more flexibility and to be able to do things with a combination of asynchronous and live, it works for them. But one of the things we heard throughout the focus group feedback is we need more connections. We need more live instruction. We need the connection with our peers, with our classroom, with our teachers, with our curriculum, with our district, and with our buildings. And that's why we developed the SES Connects program. And one of the things that, we created it, so we think it's pretty cool and pretty creative, but one of the things that we think is unique is that, sometimes in education or whatever you do in your life, you get stuck in these paradigms and lanes of here's how we do this, let's take what we've done in the past and apply it to this new situation. So, I challenged our team to take a look at this and let's eliminate the barriers that are there and let's envision something new. And so it started with all these different ideas of, how do we utilize the expertise of our teachers that are already here if we're going to have to hire new staff? And so we came up with this idea of, well, what if we put them in the same classroom together and create a similar experience? And then the idea got thrown into about, what if we live stream? What if we shared that experience at home where we would live stream the classroom, use the benefits of an experienced Strongsville City Schools teacher, have a dedicated teacher to our virtual learners, and merge these two worlds together, and that's what came of SES Connect. So if you take a look at this in the classroom, what this looks like is we are going to have one of our current SES teachers. They will be providing instruction that will be accessible to our in-person learners as well as to the virtual learners that are part of that classroom. So as I use it as an example, that I do part of the lesson. When I'm the teacher and I'm going to provide instruction on that new learning standard, that new learning component, we're going to live stream that to our students at home. Our students at home, our in-person students, are going to get that same high quality instruction from a highly qualified, experienced Strongsville City School teacher. But then what do you do after that? Because if it's just live streaming, it becomes very difficult for one teacher to interact and engage and seamlessly connect a virtual class with an in-person class. Well, that's where the SES Connect teacher comes into play, is that when we go into the lesson framework of the we do part, and we're going to break up into small groups and we're going to discuss, and I'm going to help support you with your learning, now that's where the classroom teacher can work with the in-person students and the SES Connect teacher can work with the virtual students. And some of the cool things that are evolving in our Google platform and Google Meet are, if you've done Zoom, they have breakout rooms. If you've ever experienced it, now Google Meet has that. We've used those in some of our professional meetings, and those have been helpful. And so I tried to keep going, Mr. Roberts. I was so close. I was so close. You were so excited about what I was saying. But where was it? No, I know where I was. But, putting those, doing that we do part in the breakout rooms and being able to have those small group learning experiences or individual is going to be beneficial. And then there's that time where we can say to our kids, you don't have to sit at home and watch a 7.5-hour live stream because I'm directing your learning. I'm taking care of you and your learning. So close your Chromebook. We'll come back. We'll see you in an hour or half hour, whatever it may be. So students will have a schedule. Students will have a schedule of, here's when I log on, here's when we're going to have the 4 core subjects, here's when I'm going to have lunch and recess, here's when I've got some break times. And so this kind of encapsulates, some of the drawbacks and the roadblocks we've had with Solo 2.0 and some of the benefits we think we can have through combining these experiences with SES Connect. So I'm not going to read the names again, but we have planned for every student in the Solo 2.0 program, if interested, to have a spot in SES Connects. So we have currently we have 9 Solo 2.0 classrooms. We have 9 SES Connects classrooms. And so we do have a few variations from the program that I just described. And all elementary parents got this email, so if you're like me, I need to see it in practice. There's a video that may be helpful for you to do that. So a couple options or a couple variations. Half-day kindergarten will not be the live streamed experience. It will be a remote 2.0 experience. So there's not going to be that SES Connects partnership, just for the fact it's 2.5 hours. It's our youngest learners. We wanted to give that half-day kindergarten option. But if you want that SES Connects, that full experience I just described, it's available. And for a full day kindergarten schedule, and just to clarify, that is tuition free because we're not giving all aspects of the full day kindergarten program. Third and fourth grade, based on the pathway there and the older grades, we are going to start with ELA and mathematics, so English Language Arts, reading, writing, and mathematics. We're going to implement from the first day that SES Connects experience. Science and social studies will be a part of that, but we want to get really good at ELA and math first, and then we will add science and social studies. And as I clarified, your children will still get live instruction. It just won't be live streamed from a classroom. So it would be me working with my students virtually as the SES Connects teacher. So think remote learning 2.0. That's what it's going to be for social studies and science at the start. And then eventually we will move that into a live streamed and connected experience. And then finally, fifth grade, we are going to start with ELA, so reading and writing and social studies. And that's all it's going to extend to for this school year. At the fifth grade level, most of our teachers are departmentalized, which means they switch, which causes some additional challenges. If you look at our list, we were able to find third and fourth grade teachers that are self-contained, meaning they teach all of the classes in their own classroom. So the logistics of switching and some of the nuances of 2 to 3 to 4 different teachers based on the program or the building. We thought this was a great start. Let's start with one fifth grade teacher. He will teach ELA and social studies. There will still be that math and science experience, but again, it'll be a remote 2.0 experience instead of a live streamed. So we've got our teachers that are currently our teachers, highly qualified, well-trained, the superstar teachers, as was said earlier today. And so where are the new SES Connects teachers going to come from? So these will be newly hired teachers. We've already, in our planning, we've reached out to them. We've shared, here's the program we're looking to develop. Are you interested? And so we have commitments from the teachers already prior to announcing this week. They're going to be high-quality teachers. They're going to be licensed teachers, and most of them are currently working in our district. So it's not going to be teachers where we are all new hires. They're those teachers we know. They're fulfilling long-term assignments for us right now, and they'll be able to move into those positions. And they will be employed by the district for the rest of the school year, so you do not have to worry about, hey, is this teacher in a few months going to leave? No, they'll be contracted for the rest of the school year. So what's the timeline and next steps? I said it over and over again today. I was irritating myself with how many times I said it. But Monday, November 9th at 8 a.m., the survey needs to be completed. It's going to be closed because we have 1 week to get all the classes assigned, the teachers assigned, and so we need that to be a hard deadline. So for the SES Connects program, we'll close that survey at 8 a.m. We'll use the next few days to finalize classes and class sections. We will finalize that partnership. We've got, in the week, we've got an opportunity for all of our current teachers to meet all of our SES Connects teachers and find a good partnership and finalize that selection. And then later in the week, there'll be some training of our new SES Connects teachers. There'll be some shadowing, and then we'll get a virtual meet with our students prior to the first day so we can start to get to know each other. And then it will start on Monday the 16th. So we've got other students. It's just not about SES Connect, so we've got a couple other pathways. So we've got students in Solo 2.0. So same surveys, just takes you in a different pathway when you complete it. Students have a choice to remain in Solo 2.0 for the rest of the year. Although there's a grace period where students can withdraw, and that's in the FAQs that we shared in more detail. But we are moving away from the constant movement back and forth that we've seen based on the more flexibility we gave in the first third of the year. So once you move past that grace period, which is December 18th, you are in Solo 2.0 for the rest of the year. You cannot move in the third trimester. So they have an option to stay with Solo 2.0, an option to go to in-person learning, or an option to enroll in SES Connects. And Solo 2.0 students are going to get first priority on the SES Connects program. So that will be the first tier. Everybody's completing the survey at the same time, but that will be the first tier. What do the Solo 2.0 students, what's their request? We'll place all of those students, and then the next step will be Lincoln Learning. So Lincoln Learning families will have a similar pathway. Do you want to stay in Lincoln Learning? If you do, you're going to be in it for the whole second semester, so the rest of the year. We've given that same December 18th. Let us know by that point, or if not, you're in for the rest of the year. You can return to in-person learning, which would begin at the start of the second semester, because Lincoln Learning is a semester-based program instead of a trimester-based program. And you can enroll in SES Connects, which would start at the trimester if there's still openings available. And so one of the things that we talked about is, what if I want to go back to in-person learning, but, because of class caps, I don't get my building that I was at before. I don't foresee that as an issue. We have room in most of our buildings to allow students to come back to their building. However, because of balance issues, there may be differences in the teacher you were assigned to. Not so much that there wasn't room, but if one teacher has 18 and the other has 14, we're going to give the new students to the teacher that has 14. But if you get your building assignment, you get your teacher, and you say, hey, if I can't get all of this, I'd rather go back to SES Connects or Solo 2.0, we'll make that happen. And then the last phase of it is the in-person learners. So again, we've already had some families that said, I was fine with in-person, but for whatever reason, I'd like to go for a virtual option. Same timelines apply, same survey, but they can go to Solo 2.0, they can go to SES Connects, as long as there's room after our current Solo 2.0 and Lincoln Learning students have been placed. We will place students. But again, as I stated on the call today, I may change my mind in the future, but as of right now, we're not planning on having a rolling start. So once enrollment is finalized, enrollment is finalized. We need to have a class that can build relationships, be a part of it, learn the program, and it becomes more difficult if we have students entering and leaving. So that's the abridged version of the K-5 virtual learning update I gave. I know there's a lot of people that say, wow, I would like to hear them talk for a full hour. Well, you can go to the SES TV recording and see that. And the part that I left out here was a lot of the FAQs. The FAQs that get into the details of all of the programs. They were shared out in an email. You could see those in a link. I will share these slides out tomorrow when I give my updates about the learning framework. And as I said, if you want to hear the answers to parent questions that may came up or more detail, it's on, go to strongnet.org, technology, and then SES TV is there. So Mr. Micko, I will open it up for any questions or feedback or guidance from you or the board.
Questions? Comments?
I just wanted to ask, for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade SES Connects teachers, when they're doing the social studies and the science, is there a dedicated spot in the building for them to go to?
Yes, so, for those buildings, that's Chapman and Moraski, and so I've had conversations with Mr. Griffin and Ms. Pinney, and they stated that they will have room for the SES Connects teachers to be. So they're working on the details of that, but they will have that. And then we'd have to look at, depending on travel time, but we have 3 rooms here that can be used as classrooms for any of our Connects teachers that are working in that if needed.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for the teachers for agreeing to do this. I think it's going to be a great tool for them and also for the students to be able to have that learning framework. I know at one point we were working on the Chromebooks. I just had a question in regards to kindergarten and first graders that go into the Connects program, how that's going to work with them for the Chromebooks, if we have enough and so forth.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not going to make Dave leave from the camera, but he's doing such a good job. I don't want to distract him. But no, we based on the number of Chromebooks that are out there already, what we'll have to look at is how many new in-person learners are going to go into the program and how we're able to accommodate that. But we're also, Dave and George were able to meet today to talk about some other options that may be feasible to get some additional Chromebooks. So I'll be able to loop back with them probably tomorrow and then provide once we get that enrollment done and see how many new students would need a device, then I can loop back with some more details.
All right. Thank you.
So I just want to, again, I'll echo Seth's comments. Thank you to everyone for their willingness to engage in the project. It is a learning experience, not to be overly trite, but we are learning as we go along. But I do think the Connect program addresses immediate needs, which is important, but it also sets the stage for progression for next school year and the school years beyond that. And I will just ask that understand we're trying to balance as much flexibility as possible and giving parents and students as much flexibility to navigate the pandemic as possible. But at the same time, we also have to be able to plan. And so when we can, we like to be flexible, but some of those deadlines are simply because we cannot possibly plan if parents and students are jumping into one framework and in and out of different frameworks. So I don't want anyone to misinterpret. We're not trying to box you in, but at the same time, we need to be able to staff and make sure that we have the right people in place. And if those numbers keep on changing, it's very difficult to be able to do that. But we will be as flexible as possible. And like I said, I'm excited that this is not just going to address our immediate needs, but this will be the springboard for how we respond next school year as far as what offerings we have. And part of it is those other things that we're going to be able to develop. The pandemic will eventually be over. But students, children, teachers will still get sick. And this will give us tools to be able to address when those things happen a lot better than we've done in the past. So I'm excited about that. Any other questions? Next.
With that, Mr. Micko, I turn it over to you and with regard to the learning framework for next week.
Okay. So I will start just looking at the numbers that came from the governor today. Cuyahoga County cases per 100,000 is 211. Medina is 228, and Lorraine is 172. All three counties are now in red, which, speaking for myself, gives me quite a bit of pause as to how we respond. I've been talking quite a bit for the last number of months that I was always reticent to tie ourselves strictly to Cuyahoga County when we are neighbors with Lorraine and Medina and being aware of what's going on. But that's no longer true. We're all red, and the numbers are significant. We've heard from our students at the high school, and I think that's representative probably of the challenges at the middle school also. So I am concerned about just continuing 5 days in person at the middle school and the high school. I'm going to open up for more discussion. I know, Cameron, can you discuss some of the? Jenny is at a prior engagement, but do you have the numbers at the various schools?
So the dashboard was updated earlier today. So I believe, if I'm going from memory, we have 9 active isolations and 99 quarantines. And the pace at which we're seeing, again, positive cases, and this is what the Board of Health is saying, this is what the governor said today on the call, and this is what we're seeing in our community, is it's the social interactions outside of school, outside of work, which is causing the positive cases to spread. But, when you take a look at, these, at the elementary level, we did have a larger one at Chapman Elementary School in terms of a positive case in isolation, but the propensity to have more quarantines is there at the secondary level because of the number of students, because of the switching classes, because of the fact that, as we've said, most of our classrooms are at a minimum of 5 feet social distancing. So when you take a look at, if I'm a student and I've tested positive for COVID, I've got 4 to 5 students around me that are going to be quarantined, and you extrapolate that times 8 classes and lunch and bus, and then whatever you did outside in the evening, especially at the middle school and high school level, they're much more social and out and about with friends. So you get large numbers like we saw at the high school today. And so, that's the data as of today. And, in terms of total isolations, this is the largest point we've hit since we've been open. In terms of total quarantines, this is the largest point we've hit since we've been open. We've had our peaks and valleys, but that gives you a summation.
Well, I agree too that we should change our learning framework. Like the students that said, I would like to see us in remote, but I would accept hybrid because it provides that social distancing. You still get to be in school with your, socialization with the students, and the governor said today the numbers, are continuing to rise. We're going to be more indoors these coming months with the holidays and cold weather coming. So for me, I think we should be remote, but I can accept, hybrid because at least we can still have that social distancing. The hallways, I guess, are really crowded, and the stairwells are crowded. So hopefully that eliminates some of that at the high school. The middle school, I know, I'm not sure about the middle school, how those hallways are. It's real open there, but I know the high school being older with those narrow hallways, I think that's it for now. I mean, when we look at our color-coded zip code map, since we're divided into 2 zip codes, 44149 and 44136, when we look at those together, we are in that darkest color. You guys recall that? So it's just, and of course it's hit in Strongsville too. We can see that in the schools and in the community, in the school in terms of quarantine. And for me, I think there's plenty of asymptomatic students in the school. So, and to Cameron, when you say that the virus does not originate in the school, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is when we do contact tracing, we've been able to trace it back to some other factor outside of school. So that means, if we have a teacher that tests positive, we're able to contact trace and say her husband tested positive, and that's where they were able to, or that's where they were infected by. And so there's nothing, when we do the contact tracing, there's nothing that has ever led back to, I sat next to this student in class, and then I was quarantined because I did, and then I tested positive, and there's no other pathway. The pathway has always been from the outside into the district. So, in terms of up to this point, up to the cases we have, that the 9 isolations currently, there is, from the people, there has been a clear, my sister got it, then I got it, and then I came to school and I quarantined a bunch of people around me, but none of those people got it. So that's how, that's the foundation that we build that statement on.
Well, I think that since the students aren't getting tested, so we kind of don't know if that student was positive initially and then took it to their home or took it to their sister or whomever is home, right? Is that possible?
It is, but what we're learning as we learn more about this is the timing lines up. In terms of when, I'll just use a spouse example. My spouse is not feeling good. They have COVID-related symptoms. They go get tested. I quarantine. and then 2 to 3 days later, I have those symptoms, I'm not feeling good, I get tested, and I'm positive. So the idea being, you know, could it come from do we have asymptomatic people in our buildings that have COVID? Yes, right?
Okay.
You know, I don't know that for a fact, but based on the data that they've shared, it's highly likely when we have over 6,000 people in our buildings. And so, but what we haven't seen is we haven't seen that, okay, I've got a student or I've got a staff member that has no idea how they got it. You know, I've got symptoms, I tested positive, and I've got no pathway to see where that went. What we've seen with our cases is that there's a clear pathway, and that clear pathway starts outside. So is it theoretically possible that an asymptomatic individual in school was a direct contact from somebody, and it just happened that the outside person got it at the same time and those paths crossed? Yes, it's possible. But at this point, all of our adults and kids have been able to give a clear pathway that coincides with their testing positive. Yeah.
Well, my point is just that it is asymptomatic students in the school, and like as the students were saying, I would think there is a case where somebody took it home and someone got tested positive. And since the students don't suffer as much from the virus, so the person they infected maybe suffers from the virus more, go get tested, they have it. And the students just, you know, they have to quarantine. So that's just my theory on that. And, you know, so I feel the same way, you know, we should either go remote or hybrid.
Cameron, one of the things that's a challenge for me is that in the past, hybrid's been anecdotally from parent comments, et cetera, difficult for our students. If we would go back to hybrid, how can we improve it and make it a better educational experience? Because that's critical for me.
Right, so, and it's critical for all of us. And I know we all come to our positions or our opinions by our personal experiences. And so what I would say is, you know, those are valuable, and that's what your children are experiencing. What I think is also important, and, you know, Param and Vardhan were a part of a conversation where, you know, blended learning worked for them and worked for the students that were in my superintendent's advisory group, and they actually preferred that to the other models that we've had. So, you know, but every learner's experience with that and access to it, and you know, we have a continuum of expertise within our teachers, right, as we're learning all, and I shared with the board earlier that there's a capacity limit. And as we take a look at all the work that our teachers are doing, and this is one point, I will answer your question, I just tend to get there in a long, drawn-out way sometimes.
I'm listening.
But I think what's important to note is that, you know, there's a perception that when we're in person, it just goes back to how we always did things. And that it is if you talk to our teachers, it's like the first year of teaching all over again, even for those that are teaching in person. Because the strategies and the tricks and the things that I did in the past don't work anymore, because I can't get kids together. I can't be close to kids. Kids can't be close together. How do I engage and inspire our learners when we have to sit in rows and be socially distanced? So the learning curve for how I teach in person is large. The learning curve for how I teach effectively and engage learners remotely is large. And the same is true for blended learning. And so, you know, with anything, you've got teachers that have figured it out, right? They're the early adopters. They've got to figure it out, whether they're live streaming already their classes, whether they figured out a system of, hey, I can create these pre-recorded videos and put those out to my students and then have some experiences with them to help support them. So it's asynchronous, but there's live me teaching throughout the day. So I don't want to give the impression, and I know this is not what the board is saying, that holistically we are not providing a great experience for our students in blended learning. There are variations of great experiences that are there, but the willingness and the desire and the drive for our teachers to want to enhance that is there if they see it as a viable option that is going to be put into place that can be there to be enhanced and to be there to be developed. So in my conversations with Mr. Wingler and Ms. Boydum earlier this evening, I asked that question to them. I said, if the board makes the decision today to go to blended learning, how confident are we that our teachers and our staff will take on the challenge that they've taken on in person, that they've taken on in remote, and that they took on in blended the first time, to continue to say, what's the next phase of this? And how, whether the students are in my classroom or at home on this day, how can we engage our learners? We all have the same outcome. How can we ensure a high-quality education for our learners no matter where they're at? And we are learning and developing the tools of how we can do that. So if the board votes to go to blended learning, Mrs. Boydum and Mr. Wingler already have a plan developed of how they're going to meet with teachers tomorrow to start looking at how we can enhance and evolve even next week to get to that shared outcome. Again, as we've said, with a variety of things. Is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be 100%? Is it going to get to the end outcome all in 1 week? No, but I have no doubt that we will move the needle forward significantly and take a large step forward in terms to what the blended learning experience would be for our students, and build to the ability and the pathway that whenever we need each of these learning frameworks, we don't make decisions based on how we believe that the effectiveness of in which they'll be implemented, but because they are effective options and they're in the best interest of slowing down the spread, slowing down quarantines by predominantly half at the secondary level. So those are things I have no doubt in the leadership of the administrators there, the leadership of our teachers there, that if they're given the charge to make blended learning better, that they will do it.
Are they in a position to make it 5 days a week, starting next week? And not have the, not have the office hours on Friday? Because we had discussed that before, that if we continued in blended, Friday wouldn't be an office hour day.
So one of the things we talked about I meet with the secondary principals every month, we do as a team, and so right as we were coming off of blended and going to all in, we had a conversation about that Friday. You know, what I asked our principals to come back with, and we haven't had that meeting yet, is, you know, that Friday. And what is, if we are not going to use it for a green or white day, whatever the case may be, what is the rationale and how is that going to enhance the learning of our students? So I wanted them to come back and say, either yes, we need to make that Friday an instructional day, or here's the greater benefit we will see if we keep it an asynchronous day like we are at. So I want to honor that process. I haven't followed up and closed that loop on the conversation, and I don't think it would be prudent of me to not follow up in that discussion that we started. So I can't give you that answer tonight. I can give you the answer that it's been talked about, it's been discussed. We just haven't closed the loop as of yet.
I have a question. This is a little bit unconventional, so I'm going to ask if I can do it. We've had a number of students here tonight speak to their desire and what they perceive as a need to go hybrid, and I understand that many of them have had positive experiences with that. Are we allowed to invite them if they want to, one or many, to share the things that worked for them?
Yes.
So any of you could speak to us, please, Vardon.
Hi. Again, I'm Pardon. Thank you for inviting me. I'd love to speak on the experiences, actually. For me personally, I don't know if enjoyed is the best word, but I really found the hybrid model effective. And specifically, what I found effective about the hybrid model is that every night when I came home from school, in the 5 days a week learning framework, you have to do your homework for the next day, right? So as soon as you come home from school, you're, I guess, stressing about the homework, you're thinking about the homework, there's not really a break from school. Mm-hmm. In the hybrid framework, especially since the way most of my teachers have been doing it, the other day is an asynchronous day. So I have that evening to rest, recuperate, and recover. And then the next day I can wake up and I can really sit down, make a list, and just hammer out what I need to do for that day. I also really actually appreciated the office hours on Friday. I didn't utilize them frequently, I will admit, however, but when I did utilize them, when I did ask my teachers, it was helpful to have either a specific time or just being able to have that joint time between the students and the teachers, where both students and teachers are available, to conference, to ask questions. I know when we shifted back to 5 days a week, I was having trouble understanding something in my physics class, and it was really hard to set up a time between me and my physics teacher, just because both of our schedules are really busy. That Friday actually really helped in that sense. I was able, if I didn't understand something, I was able to just be like, oh, I'll just ask my teacher about it on Friday. In addition, I think in terms of the coronavirus thing, it was the traffic, you would think like half, if there's so many people, half will still be like traffic or whatever. The traffic was so significantly reduced. It was so far reduced, in fact, that I could say probably that social distancing was able to be mostly enforced in the hallways. There weren't any, more than the fact that there weren't any, there weren't people next to each other, there was significant traffic flow, just everywhere in general. You were able to move in and out of places without lingering in any one place. And in my opinion, that's extremely important in preventing the spread of the coronavirus, as has been shown by the Board of Health, by multiple independent studies, etc. Overall, I think it was an excellent framework. It provided the social interaction that we need in order to keep our mental health up. It provided the educational interaction that we needed with our teachers in order to keep our instruction going. But it also prevented, in my opinion, the spread of coronavirus. I think it's a good compromise. And I think also, I'm sorry, I keep on continuing, but it's a sustainable option. Going remote or going fully back in person, neither, in my opinion, are options that you can sustain over large disparities in COVID cases. If you're fully online, you're gonna have to transition back to in-person when COVID cases go back down. When you're fully in person, you're going to have to transition to either online or hybrid when COVID cases go significantly up again. Hybrid is the option that allows for the most stability, and it allows for people to plan the best. In my opinion, those are the reasons why hybrid is, in my opinion, the best model, but I will obviously respect any decision that the board makes. Thank you.
Vardon, what year are you?
I'm a senior.
And what classes are you taking?
Should I list them?
Unless you're uncomfortable.
I'm taking AP Economics, I'm taking AP Physics Mechanics, AP French, what's after that? English, AP Literature, and then Multivariable Calculus, and then Symphony Orchestra as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vardon, I have a question for you, actually, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
If on your asynchronous days, if those turned into live streaming learning days, would you be able to accomplish the same set of kind of your agenda and everything else you put together on those days, do you think?
That's a difficult question. I think the answer to that can be found in the remote 2.0 when we started very back, we had the online option. I forgot what it's called, fully online. And we would have classes every other day. I think that more important thing, other than the fact that there is a class or is not a class, is that each class doesn't meet every day. So if you're saying that if you turn that asynchronous day into a live stream day, I don't personally believe that would allow me to accomplish as much. I think it would diminish somewhat the benefits of hybrid. Obviously, it wouldn't diminish its effectiveness in containing the coronavirus, but instructionally, I don't think that I would receive those same benefits. On the other hand, it would allow for more live interaction with my teachers, which could be a potential benefit. The thing that did happen in the very beginning of the year, we still had that Friday. So that Friday was really important in recovering, resting, and just talking to your teachers in a time where we had classes every day. So I would say that possibly, but under the condition that you would still have that Friday in order to do what you needed to do, essentially.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other students that would like to share? Autumn?
I think a concern that before even we came here, a lot of us had was mental health. I know personally it's a struggle when you don't get that social interaction. I think having those days where you don't have classes to fully recover, you get a break, because it's not just the stress of the coronavirus and the stress of classes anymore. Obviously, those two things are still prevalent, but you have that day to recuperate. You have that day to get stuff done. You have that day to get a mental break, call your friends, do the things that you need to get done as well as the things that are healthy for you. I think hybrid's the best option for that. On top of that, if you think about in the future, college, you have those days where you don't have every single class every day. I personally look at it as a way to approach college better, because then you get that experience before you actually go. So you get to learn what works best for you before you're actually put in that scenario. So I think overall, like Brodon said, it's the best compromise that you could get. You're not going to the extreme of being fully in person. You're not going to the extreme of being completely remote. You get both, and then there's also the days where you get to clean the school, which is also important, and that'll help at least stop the spread of it. So as Brodon said, I think hybrid and having those days where you don't have the learning and those days where you can meet with teachers, I think that's the best option. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Michelle?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
I just want to add, the governor said several times today, coronavirus is not spreading in the schools. You know, he was very plain, it's happening outside of our schools. He actually said it's better for kids to be in school and activities because they are controlled environments where we follow the rules. I too am concerned about the raising numbers. I think if we decide tonight to go back to hybrid, I would challenge our administrators and our teachers to please engage our children every day, as our city is not closing down. Restaurants are open, the mall is open, our rec center is opening up more. The gyms are opening. We can go play basketball together. My concern is if we don't have organized class time on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, our children are going to go out there and they're going to be more exposed. I want to thank our kids and our teachers and our administrators for giving us 3 solid weeks of 5 days in school. I think they've done a fantastic job. I guess I would end there. Thank you.
I have a couple things I wanted to share. This week, there are 3 things that gave me pause. One is the number of cases. I don't think anyone can look at that number and say, wow, we're doing a great job, you know, beating this thing. It's getting worse daily. When you start pushing 5,000, yeah, it worries me. Second is this dashboard. This worries me. This is what I have kept my eye on a lot, and not specifically because of, you know, we're spreading it in the schools, but for every one of the staff members that's quarantined, it has changed the learning model for the students still in school. I have 3 kids at the elementary right now. All 3 of them have some other varied framework of learning. That's just bad luck on my part because that's not happening district-wide, but that is happening, where the students are having to adjust to a new learning framework if they're, you know, bringing the teacher in. So those are things that I'm concerned about too. And the third is observation. You know, several of us went into the school buildings to, you know, see what was going on, see the distancing at lunch, see the mask wearing, see the flow of the hallways. And something that happens, as you know, when I come in with my tag and I'm walking around with Mr. Wingler, everybody puts their mask on, right? I'm never gonna see exactly what's happening because you're putting on a show for me. And I know that, and so I did have a chance to go see the girls' soccer game the other night, and I didn't go there to, you know, mask patrol. I went there because I like soccer, and I like to watch Sherry's daughter and the other ladies play soccer, and they're really good. That's why I went, but I couldn't help but notice when I had my hood up, right, and my tags were hidden, and I was sitting by myself, I was able to observe a lot more things. And there were things that concerned me. And hearing you guys today speak to the same kind of things that may be happening in your classrooms, it worries me. If we're not at the kind of compliance with the mandates that we have, that we need to be, I think we have to consider some kind of change to address those. Maybe at the middle school and high school level, the elementary, there are some concerns I have about models of, you know, bringing teachers in through Google Classroom or whatever, but I think our main concern right now is the middle school and high school. And that's where I'd like to see some kind of, if the board could agree on some kind of change going into next week.
You guys, go ahead, Sherry.
Oh, well, I just had a comment on, you know, what I think Verdon was saying in terms of keep being consistent. So if we were to go on hybrid now, it's like right now, we just decided to go on hybrid because of the numbers. At what point, like, what are the metrics that we're going to use to be going back and forth? If we decide to go back to school, or if we decide to go back, go remote, fully remote. Right now, we're just flying by because the numbers are up. I think we need to develop some type of metrics to help us determine.
But I think we have those metrics. We have 3 counties in red, and we have a positivity rate above 5%, and we have significant quarantines.
Right.
We
but-
also had those before,
Yeah.
except the Medina was orange. That was the biggest difference.
We didn't have the same number of quarantines and isolations.
Yeah,
last
but
week
what are
either.
our,
Well,
what
I
are we
know,
going?
I
We had
agree with you.
88
Okay.
We can start
88 2
talking
weeks ago.
about what are we using. I'm open to that discussion.
Yeah,
But there are some if we want to use those, but they have changed this week.
That's true.
These
And-
particular ones.
And they have, but right now, according to our original framework, I guess we're not in purple, but we should be in purple. It's like we're off the charts in all our numbers. We would be in remote now. So at what point are we gonna say, okay, we should go to remote, or if ever, you know?
I understand.
So,
what
you
you're
know,
saying.
something to give the parents and the students, something to say. They're looking at the numbers too, and they can say, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna be in remote, or we're going back to school now, instead of us meeting and making our decision every week.
And I'll speak for myself. That's the challenge that I face, is that back in February, March, when we came up with this, when we started working on these frameworks, and then we came up with that framework, we thought the virus was acting a certain way. And then time marches forward, and we learn more about the virus and how it affects things. For example, the fear was that schools would be super spreader areas, and it turns out they're not. But a lot of our framework was based on that. And so I'm comfortable that, at least for now, we continue to meet on a regular basis, and we continue to discuss, and we continue to be cautious. But I'm afraid that, and I'm not against having a conversation of what metrics to look at and what to use, but I think we run into the same, I'm afraid we will run into the same issue, that if we say this is going to be our new scorecard, and 3 months from now, the facts on the ground change, I do not want us to be tied into a scorecard. And I'm, again, speaking for myself, I'm comfortable that we continue to do this on a regular basis. And I recognize that, you know, the consequence to that is people can't just say, I'm going to look at this and, oh, we're going purple, I know we're going to be in remote. But
if we're in purple, we were going to be in remote.
correct.
Okay.
Correct, but what I'm saying is that, I apologize if I didn't say it well, but I'm afraid that I do not want to be tied to a scorecard that we develop today and 2 months from now doesn't apply the same way. You know, the governor has talked about how when they came up with a lot of these things, it was back in March, and all of the metrics were we did not know what the consequences are. We now are 4 months forward, and we know that it isn't as virulent, I can never say that properly, for young people. So it is a different dimension, and that's one of the things that I am cautious about.
I would like us to look at some kind of rate. I mean, the positivity rate being at 6.7 is very concerning. Obviously, the 5 was kind of that line that everybody was looking at previously, and rightfully so. You know, we've all seen the numbers. I mean, another day in the U.S. is 100,000 new cases, or 100,000 plus new cases. You know, the state itself has, I forget the exact number, but another high day for that. I'm sorry, the state's almost 5,000. And then our average over the last 5 days has been, as far as in the county, has been almost 3,500. So I think for me, the rate is a big concern. And then obviously the quarantines, everything locally within our own district is a concern. And yes, the spread is, as we've been able to find out, has not maybe been directly tied to in school. I still have the concern of the asymptomatic carriers. At some time also like Michelle said, the framework of teaching is changing a lot for the students, so that consistency is not there. And at some point, obviously, there's so many teachers that are out, then we're going to have to be in quarantine anyways, or going to a remote setting, or whether it be for a school or for a particular class or for an entire building. So I think from our standpoint of district, to do our part to help with the community, kind of spread of it all, I would make the recommendation we go blended through Thanksgiving break.
I just wanted to share in terms of what Rich said about coming up with a specific framework again. And one of the reasons I'm hesitant to do that is I shared 3 things that I observed, right? One of them, and one of them I think most important ones for me this week, has nothing to do with our charts. It has everything to do with whether we're mask compliant and whether we're able to social distance appropriately. Those 2 things we have to see what is happening in the classroom. They really do not depend in any capacity on any outside factor. So that's why I'm leery to kind of put a framework in that's based on something external, because there are things within our district that if we need time to adjust our hallways, if we just have a capacity issue, we need to acknowledge those things and adjust to them. And I don't think that putting specific parameters, we're going to dig ourselves the same hole we did the first time, where we had to go outside of the framework because this is an ever-changing thing. And I don't want to have to do that again. I don't want to put a new system in place just to undo it. So that's kind of where I am. And Seth, I appreciate that recommendation.
Any other conversation?
Well, how many weeks are there in school after Thanksgiving?
3, right?
Before the end of the semester?
3 or 4, I could look.
Okay. Because we've been talking about consistency. I'm like, what? And then after Thanksgiving, then we'll go, what are you saying? Then make another decision?
At that point, we'd have another board meeting.
Okay.
I think it's the 20-something. I
Okay.
forget exactly, but
Do we
That would
need
give
to
us
have
another
more
time.
conversation about what things we're looking at? I mean, each one of us has our own data point that's most significant. Do we need to have that discussion so that at least we're all looking at the same thing? Like where I hear the positivity rate is a concern for Seth.
And that is for me, the per 100,000, like all the metrics that the board, Calaga County Board use, or the Ohio Department of Health, like just looking at those numbers. Let's see what we have here. We have hospitalizations, ICU admissions, deaths. We don't want that, but just looking at all those metrics.
So the ones that are
Positivity
leading to
rates, huh?
the ones that are leading to the color code are of significance to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I just don't like the idea of, like, we're just coming in and making decisions based on nothing. I mean, obviously, based on how we feel, but no one else knows what
Well, I
we're
would-
using to make these decisions.
Sherry, I would challenge you. I don't think we're basing it on how we feel. I think we're all looking at we're looking at the report cards. We're looking at our own dashboard. We're looking at our Strongsville, the specific numbers in Strongsville. And we're looking at and listening to what's happening with the ears on the ground. And I think like the SES Connects program has promise, it'll allow individuals the flexibility to make their own decisions, and that's what I'm hoping we can progress for. And I'm still going to advocate that we do it in small measured steps. I appreciate the idea of saying we're going to do it, for a long period of time to give that kind of stability, but I also think it doesn't allow us to maintain that judgment. We're all intelligent people. We're all looking at the numbers. We're not just saying, how do I feel? But we're making intelligent judgments. And I'm comfortable with that. And I know I know the consequence of a weekly meeting is frustrating, but I actually think that's a wise thing to do right now. Other school boards in the area are meeting on regular basis. I think it was Rocky River just the other day, met and said they can't make a decision. They want to wait to get more data because we continue to balance the health, safety of our students and our staff with our charge, which is to educate our students. So
Yeah, I agree with that we missed out. But I do agree with Seth too, because we're like the only school district of our size in Cuyahoga County where high school and middle school students are going 5 days a week. And a lot of these districts are saying to the next semester.
Right.
So we should, I think 3 weeks, I think Seth's ideal of after 3 weeks from now, as that would be, or a couple weeks
It would
from.
be
2 weeks
essentially
and 2 days.
2 weeks and 2 days.
2 weeks,
And-
days, and coming back, because I don't see the numbers changing drastically and coming back then. At least people know, okay, we're in hybrid for 2 weeks for sure. I mean, I don't think that's long, but then we can make another decision at that point.
Which, my understanding, you were suggesting to potentially go hybrid next week, meet again, and maybe go back to, depending on numbers and everything else, go back to in-person the week before Thanksgiving?
If
that's what you're
the
suggesting.
data
Yeah.
supports and justifies it. I mean, right now, we're we have the 3 reds, which is concerning. For me, the bigger concern is what's going on at the high school and the middle school, and having a week to be able to say, how do we address those concerns? One of the consequences to our 5 feet rule is that when we contact trace, we can't say people are 6 feet out, and that's the ruler that the county's using. And which is why our quarantines are as high as, one of the reasons why our quarantines are so high is because we're saying we have a 5-foot limit. Well, we automatically, students within that 5-foot sphere automatically get quarantined because they're not 6 feet. So I think we need to problem solve that, because if we can figure out a way to do that, that will allow us to lessen the number of students that are being quarantined. I think I'm comfortable with continuing the 1 week, and if things settle, maybe we do for a longer period.
Cameron, I have a couple of questions. Does 1 week give us what we would need to, if we're looking to accomplish a couple of things? One, addressing any kind of high school mask compliance kind of issues. Give another good look at hallway traffic patterns and or lunch. And then give the teachers the confidence that hybrid is a real option, that they should really put their energy into as a focus. Does 1 week accomplish that?
So I think in terms of the 1 week, I'll start from the last question and move forward. So in terms of the 1 week, if the board votes to go back to blended, I think that sends a strong signal that blended is a viable option for our staff, and they will continue to do what they've done in providing, the best possible experience for our students at home, and look at, again, we're now a month beyond where we were when we started this in September, of looking at what have they learned, what skills have they developed, comfort level of in the videos or the live streaming, whatever it may be, to be able to do that. So I think in terms of getting 1 week, it's not going to get us to the end result, as I said, but I think it takes us a significant step forward in that part of it. In terms of the mask compliance, I can't say that I'm significantly confident that it's going to make a major distance, because it's not like they're not working hard to do that now. So what it helps on is it reduces quarantines. It reduces, in talking to the secondary administrators, they believe it'll reduce quarantines by half. So the mask compliance, I think it gives, it's just another, I don't think it's going to be different. It's just another week to try and get kids and staff to comply with the rules and come up with more creative options to do that, or feedback loops to do that. In terms of the hallways, and I've said this, when I've talked to parents or kids, You know, the hallways and the lunchrooms, we will continue to, let me separate those two, the hallways. We will continue to problem solve, but we are running out of viable options. You know, we're what did you say, Mr. Micko, 3 weeks of in-person instruction? So 3 weeks of in-person instruction, there's only so many one-way hallways and one-way stairwells that we can do. And as our students said, and when I was there, you know, the hallways were not bad, but we had lots of adults in the hallways, and it was early on of telling kids to go, well, you move those adults, it's nothing wrong with the kids, it's just natural instinct. There's not an adult saying, everybody go this way, everybody go that way, they're gonna intermingle together. So in terms of the hallways and the lunchroom and capacity, you know, the hallways I don't think are gonna get significantly better. I don't feel that they're an unsafe, and I respect what the students said, but I think in terms of the passing time and the contact time and the science of really getting contracted with COVID in the hallways, I don't see that as a concern for me. You know, in the lunchroom, I'll have to loop back. You know, one of our students shared that we use the auxiliary gym, and the auxiliary gym, at least for this one student's perspective, was there was a lot of room in there and a lot of available space. So the idea that we need to force that and assign rooms for students for lunch, so I think there's some options for, you know, that to be improved in terms of lunch. I feel like I've missed something you asked me.
No, I think you
Okay.
addressed them. Thank you. The other question I have is, are there currently any consequences for not abiding by mask and/or other policy?
Yeah, so we have a student code of conduct committee. They met, we met as a, I'm not a part of it, so it's not me, but the group met and they created a progressive discipline plan in terms of what we would do from K to 5 or K to 12. So it's not just at the high school or middle school, but you know, here's the first offense, here's the second offense, whether it's in the school or on a bus or wherever it may be. So, you know, the challenge is that we always hear, we sometimes hear, you know, the administration's doing nothing. But part of the plan is that, I think, you know, you shared a check system or a warning system, or we want to, because sometimes it's not deliberate. Like, I know, you know, the mask, depending on the mask, it'll fall below your nose, you know. So how many times do we have to say to put it above the nose? The deliberate, I'm going to keep the mask off, as it was shared, and I'm going to walk around the commons and talk to kids, that's a different story. But there is a progressive plan that's being implemented by the buildings.
Is that printed somewhere that we could see it?
Yeah, it's written up. I don't know if it's published or posted, but I can get it to you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, we were talking about potentially hybrid for specifically middle school and high school.
But that's what I'm talking about. I don't, you know, I'm comfortable that at the elementary level, the challenges don't exist the same way at the elementary level.
Correct.
We may very well have compliance issues. We may really, very well have issues with teachers or students, but I don't think we have the same challenges of space, of a lot of people in a small space. So that's where I'm comfortable that the elementaries can stay.
When they don't switch
in person.
classes, which makes a big difference.
As far as the switching classes, you know, to me, it's one of those attitude things. Do we use that negative, you know, what are the consequences, or do we all help each other to remind each other, et cetera? I know at work we have that similar challenge where, you know, is it a matter of catching people, or is it a matter of reminding people? And I think the students can go a long way towards changing that culture. It's not school, but go ahead.
I do have a quick question. So for the teachers, what I've noticed, and obviously this privacy, but not to mention what the teachers have students avoid. From what I have seen in the class that I've attended, this specific teacher, along with another teacher who I've seen, pull their mask down in class, but as soon as an administrator or someone of higher superiority than students, they put it back
I appreciate the question, but we're going to continue our meeting, and I'm going to suggest you talk to the high school principal. And if you don't like the answer, then talk to Cameron.
It sounds like we have two different options on the table, and I'm not really sure how to proceed from here.
I was going to make a motion.
I would make the motion to go in a hybrid setting through November 27th, I guess it would be, and reevaluate on our November 19th meeting,
And you're specifically for the high school and the middle school?
specific to the high school, middle school, yes.
Stay all in for the preschool through 5?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You said through the 24th, Seth?
Yeah, through the 24th, and then we would reevaluate on our November 19th meeting. And that's when we meet next, right? Well, traditional.
That's our next scheduled meeting.
regular scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
So to repeat the motion that Mr. Roberts made, he's recommending we go to hybrid until, one more time, what was the date?
November
24th. Till November 24th, till the last day before Thanksgiving break for the high school and the middle school, and that the elementaries would stay in person 5 days a week.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Well, when is Thanksgiving? Is that the 26th?
26th.
26th? Oh, so we would go to school,
It's up there.
because the 24th is that Tuesday.
Correct, that's the last day of school before Thanksgiving break.
Okay, so we were really.
Sherry, if the calendar's on the,
Okay, I have here. So we would go back to school on the 30th,
We would evaluate at the meeting on the 19th,
right? So
which
this,
direction we would go.
okay, for the 30th, okay, got it. I'm just saying, we're not talking about going to school that next week.
No,
Okay,
not with the motion that has been made.
thank you.
is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? So, and Seth, I'm not, I will just say I don't support the length of time. It's not the plan per se, it's the length of time. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Kiffer, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucknell-Sally?
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
No?
Mrs. Hausum?
No.
And the motion carries. So we will be in blended until the 24th. I don't think there's any other discussion on the plan. Next on our agenda is, was there anything else on Restart, Cameron?
No. I just shut off the projector. That's
So there definitely is not.
No, there is more I wanted to show you, but you have the paper in front of you. So I'm okay to, I'm done for my part of it. If the board is done, then we'll move on to business services. Okay. So what I shared, you have a paper copy in front of you, but I'm going to, Mr. Breckner had a prior engagement as well tonight, so I'm going to fill in terms of the discussion. So these are two separate items, but we can kind of talk about them together. So one of them is the district rental fees. So as, just as a FYI for all of our new board members, we have board policy and administrative guidelines that detail rental fees. And those are based on what type of organization you are. So if you're a school-affiliated organization and you want to rent our facilities, or a PTA, or a 501c3, you can rent our facilities any day, Monday through Friday, as long as we're open. There's no rental charge for you. And as long as it's our typical operating and our custodians are already working, there's no custodial fees. So Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you want to rent every Tuesday at 6 o'clock to have your group meeting, you could do that. There's no rental fees for the space, and there's no custodial fees because we're already paying our folks to work. The only time there's fees assessed for that group is custodial fees, and that's on weekends. So if you want to come in and have an event on a Saturday, we have to bring our staff in to open the building and clean the building, and all we do is directly recharge you what we paid our custodians to work that day. And then there's other groups that are for-profit groups they pay the facility rental fee during the week at all times, and then on weekends, they'd pay the rental fee, the facility fee, as well as custodial fees. So that's the piece of it. But one of the things, I'm going to reconnect my computer here, just so we can all look at the similar document that you have in front of you, is some recommendations that would go beyond the fees that we charge. So what we're recommending for facility rentals is that we keep the rates the same. A handful of years ago, Steve did a bunch of research, talked to similar school districts, I believe, North Royalton, Medina, Brunswick were the three. Seth, was there, I know he communicated, was there any others on the list?
I think Berea or Middleburg
Maybe
Heights.
Berea, okay. So what we found was our rates were a lot lower than other comparable school districts. And so what we did is we adjusted our rates, specifically our auditorium rate, and our field usage rate was low, so we adjusted those to be more of the market rate. And they've been the same. We've kind of, pulled a few to make sure we're still aligned. We feel good with the rates that we have. So we're not recommending any change to our rental rates for our facilities as they've been in the past. However, we are recommending that we add a $50 charge as a COVID expense for weekend events that are longer than 2 hours in duration. So why just the weekend events? So we have product that we have to use this is beyond just the custodial hours. We have product that we have to use. Well, if you rent our space during the day, we're going to clean the bathrooms after everybody's gone. We're going to clean that classroom when everybody's gone. So we're not using any more product than we would in a daily occurrence. But if you come in on a Saturday, if you weren't there, we wouldn't have used any product. But when you're there, we're going to have to clean the bathrooms. We're going to have to clean the area. In athletic events, we're going to clean between games. That's listed there. So this equates to the cost of product that would be there. And so we're recommending, the reason we picked the 2 hours in duration is we do have some groups that may be 501c3s that are already paying custodial rates. And if they're there for a short period of time, we don't want to price folks out that they can't survive as a 501c3 because they're paying custodial fees and a $50 fee on top of it. But we figure if you're there for longer than 2 hours, you're there for an event, that would be fair to do that. And it gives the reasons there. And so the other things that we're recommending is that we would have some specific procedures and policies specific to COVID. The first bullet points detail what would be general guidelines. And then the reason we break this out is we have a lot of rec basketball at this time of year. We have a lot of weekend basketball, weekend sporting events. So I'm not going to read through the bullets as you've seen this prior in an update, but some guidelines that we would give. So the process would be you apply for our space. We give you these guidelines to say here's what you have to commit to put into place. The people that have rented before this have been great. They've really done a nice job of following the guidelines that are in place there. So that starts with the discussion item in terms of the rate, the facility rental procedures. So are there any questions or feedback from the board on this aspect of it?
I have none, Cameron. I thought everything seemed reasonable, and I know sometimes it might seem like we're bipolar, but we have to balance having the different groups using our facilities, but also using them safely during the pandemic.
And so moving on to the second item, before we begin that, just 2 points of clarity I would like to provide. First of all, the reason you're approving this is per board policy. You need to approve our rates on an annual basis, and this is around the time every year that we approve our rates. And the second thing is where does the money we collect from the rentals go to? So, as I said, if it's paying for custodial fees, it just reimburses the district for those costs we incurred. But the rental rates go back into a line item for Steve that goes back into building repairs and maintenance. So we've been able to do some upkeep projects and put that money back into our facilities that we have from the rental rates there. So it goes back to help improve our facilities. So With that, be it resolved upon my recommendation that the board accepts the schedule of rental fees for the 2021 school year for the district as listed in Exhibit A.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Roberts. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hausum. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Kiffer?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckner-Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes. And the motion carries.
Moving on to curriculum, a couple routine items. Again, these are pass-through funds. We are the fiduciary responsible entity for St. Joseph and John and other parochial schools that have students that are Strongsville students attending their schools. So the first one is a service agreement with McKean Education Group. Be it resolved around the recommendation of the superintendent that we enter into an agreement with them in the amount of $14,307 for one part-time Title I instructor to service pupils at St. Joseph and John, as found in Exhibit B. Another agreement with the same group for $7,153.71 for a part-time Title I instructor at Bethel Christian Academy under the Title I federal funding administered by the non-public school by local districts, as found in Exhibit C. And third, same group, same fund, for $3,576.86 for a part-time Title I instructor for Incarnate Word Academy under the same funds as found in Exhibit D. And finally, I would like to share with the board that it's my recommendation that we remove item 4 from the agenda. I apologize that one got past me. We had already had the conversation with the high school administrative team that until further notice, we will have no overnight athletic trips. And we actually have a perimeter for non-state events for how far we're going to travel during the virus. And well in range of folks being able to have their season. And again, that excludes state travel for state competitions, but to remove that item as we will have no overnight trips until further notice. And that ends the superintendent's report.
Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar means that all items appearing on the agenda with asterisks are adopted by a single motion unless requested otherwise. We do have one item that's been requested otherwise, and that is the overnight trip for the Strongsville High School boys varsity. That is removed from our consent calendar. Are there any other items? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kyle?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckner-Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Board of Education other, do we have any others? Hearing none, we do have need for executive session on the topics of?
To consider the employment of a public employee, to consider the sale of property at competitive bidding, to prepare for negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. Kyle?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckner-Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes. We will enter into executive session at 8:55 PM. We have no expectation for any further business. I'm sure Dr. Ryba will be sending email updates to our parents on our changes in framework, and we'll see everyone in 2 weeks. Thank you.